We tend to think about physical places, as well as the activities and cultures that come with those places, as being immutable. As an individual, you may have a choice to move to a particular place, to San Francisco for its open and accepting culture, or for its AI development scene, to Berlin for the open source hacker culture, or to Asia to be part of a new and rising world. At the same time, we take all those features as given, as exogenous, and a fixed part of the human world. They are trade offs, and you have to choose. That's just human nature, part of life. But what if this could be different? What if cultures or tribes that have formed online with their own goals and values could materialize offline and new physical places could grow due to intention rather than random chance? These are the words, or this is how a new essay starts, written in Palladium magazine by Vitalik Buterin, the creator of Zuzalu and the founder of Ethereum. This is the key premise to this movement and is really well encapsulated. What if we can overcome the limitations of place, correct for the injustice of the passports that we've been assigned at birth, and unleash the human talent held back by legacy constraints? As regular listeners of this podcast know, I am bullish on city builders like Prospera, who have utilized special economic zones to build improved legal and governance. Praxis or Tipolis are also on the way to becoming such city builders. Prospera may be more jurisdiction first, Praxis may be more community first, and we've talked about these differences on the podcast. Now I see a new difference emerging, the difference between a vertical and a horizontal network society. And I call it network society on purpose. As many of you know, I don't like Balaji's network state sovereignty approach. I think state sovereignty is something to be overcome, not something to be achieved. So Prospera, Praxis, and Tipolis are vertical network societies. They build the legal and governance software to increase the value of the hardware, the land and the real estate that they have jurisdiction over. This vertical governance stack, however, is quite hard and expensive to build. Like we've learned from numerous episodes how hard it is. Real estate, land, and territorial governance are really, really difficult to do. You have a chance at succeeding at those only if you become really good at it, if you focus. As you know, I care about technological progress. That's what the podcast is about. These new governance models are needed to unleash technological development held back by legacy constraints in many different areas. One of the, if not the best example, is healthcare and biotech. As you heard in numerous episodes with Sebastian Brunemeyer, with Robin Hansen, with Lawrence Iron and I, longevity biotechnology is a stranded and held back technology that could progress much faster. The science is very promising. We have found the hallmarks of aging. We have decoded human cellular biology, and we have pathways to significantly reduce, halt, or even reverse the process of cellular aging. So we could overcome mortality if you succeed at this. And places like Prospera can unleash that. So we know about the barriers. We know about the regulatory constraints or the FDA. I can point you at episodes 4 and 8 where we talked about. So places like Prospera, Praxis, or Tipolis, they are needed to provide alternatives. But they can't do it on their own. And that would just be too much or unfocused. Prospera is focused on the vertical governance. It's meant to be a platform, a protocol for others to build on. So enter the horizontal network society. The horizontal network society buys governance services from existing service providers, vertical network societies, and focuses on one area where it's really good in, or it's moral innovation, if you will. It would be distracting for the longevity community to become city builders. You can just buy the service from others. You don't need to build and operate real estate and land if you rent it. Enter Vitalia. Vitalia is a horizontal network society. It's not the first one. Afropolitan in praxis can be described as having a horizontal network society approach. But Vitalia is the first network society that is laser focused on the acceleration of one particular moral innovation. Life is good, death is bad, as you heard in the episode with Patrick Linton, episode 46. Our goal is to make death optional. So I'm going to switch to a presentation now to show you what I have in mind. Here again, and again, these are insights that are not released to the public yet or articulated. So you as listeners, you get an opportunity here and really key details that you need, including a link to the application to become a resident in Vitalia. So what is our goal or the mission? So Vitalia is, as I said, a network society that aims to radically accelerate the development of life extension technologies. By network society, we mean 3 or more longevity districts or cities. We started districts, right? So we use existing governance service providers. Maybe we will build cities later, where we do vertical integration. But we start by being lean, held together by a cloud community. And life extension technologies are the things that we talked about often on this podcast, and medical drugs and therapies. Also, a lot of it is about the incentives, right? How do you do the insurance? How do companies get reimbursed and things like that? And also, how do you get incentivized as an individual to live a healthy life, right? And how does your community around you incentivize you to live healthy? So we looked at different jurisdictions. This whole idea started during Zuzalu in Montenegro, and we compared different jurisdictions. As you know, my flag in the ground was let's do it in Honduras because of Prospera, but we want to be multi-jurisdictional. So Montenegro could be a great place to do medical tourism in Europe, for example. Uruguay could be great for the production of biopharmaceutical goods. And there's other places, some of which we are talked to, that provide or could provide different kinds of advantages as well. But again, Honduras and Prospera is the first flag in the ground. So has the deepest legal autonomy in the world. And we could get the most progress, especially in the areas of research and of clinical trials, and potentially also of medical tourism. So we're Prospera's building out that capacity. The legal system allows for the full degree of medical freedom that we need to build that. And also, as a nice addition, it is very crypto native, right? So we could use many of the new incentive mechanisms that you also heard about in this podcast that are coming from the crypto world. It also has a really good location for medical tourism, and it's very easy to get to. So, and it is very used to tourists, and it's really beautiful. So this is an aerial view of the location where we will hold Vitalia. This is, if you haven't seen this yet, around about how the Prosper jurisdiction looks like right now. It's divided, or the central location is divided into these 2 parts. One is the Greenfield side, where you have the Better building, the Duna residences, and the circular factory. So we'll rent out part of that capacity. And the key location will be here in the Pristine Bay Resort, both between the Las Veranas Hotel, several villas, and the beach club. This is again a view of the Better building, the circular factory, and the beach club and the villas around it. The beach club here will be the central location. So we'll have a gym, pool, co-working space, restaurants, and bars, and it's a walkable area. So we can create city level density here. You might need a car to get to the supermarket. We want to have healthy rituals here. We want to have a gym. We want to do yoga sessions. We want to do cold plunges in the morning, potentially cook together. We have this beach to ourselves where we can play volleyball, do sports. We can take boats out for scuba diving or snorkeling or swimming. This is the Las Veranas Resort again, so we can create density here by renting out many of these villas. These are individual villas that residents will be able to rent, where you have a bit more privacy and a very high standard. And we also rent some capacity outside the jurisdiction just because we want to make it as large as possible. So we'll rent that capacity partly also for visitors, right? So we have backup capacity, but we'll also be able to, this is reasonably close, right? So this is less than 10 minutes away from the other central location, and there will be shuttles and electric bikes and go-karts available. And the motto is live, work, and play. right? So you can totally do this if you have full-time work. And again, why do we do this here? So Mini Circle has blazed the trail. They have developed or tested reversible gene therapy, follistatin gene therapy. One of the first patients was the longevity superinfluenza blind Brian Johnson, and they were able to reduce the costs of clinical trials by 80 to 95%. And there's a massive medical tourism opportunity. Witnessed that people like Brian Johnson are already coming for this. And it was under supervision by the Garden Stem Cell Clinic, a regenerative medicine clinic focused on medical tourism that has IRB authority. So basically, we can do clinical trials here under the same safety protocols and totally interoperable with other jurisdictions for clinical trials and auditable by the FDA, right? But at the same time, we can reduce the cost and overhead of democracy. It's also a sandbox to build, right? If you take this aerial view, there is tons of space in the real world to build. So as I said before, Prosper as a protocol is the software that increases the value of the hardware, but it's encouraging builders to come here and build on top of it, which is part of the big reason why I see this horizontal network society as so promising, right? Because places like that, like Prospera, are attracting like places and projects like Vitalia that can build horizontally. So one of the key projects we want to do is a Temescal sauna. So it is the perfect encapsulation of what we want to stand for with Italia. It has sort of the Latin, the Mayan, tribal, ritualistic character. It has the longevity character, and it's a nice project, easy project to build together. So building things together in the real world is the model. Also, we'll have a very high degree of crypto adoption. It's within the jurisdiction, almost any cryptocurrency or most of the mainstream ones will be possible to use. And also the Bitcoin Education Center, MITH, if you remember episode 19 on the podcast, run by Dusan Matuska, has onboarded more than 50 businesses on the island on Bitcoin, which is fabulous. So you can go outside and get a haircut in Bitcoin. You can go to several restaurants and several really cool places outside of the jurisdiction as well. Also, will be family friendly, right? So we have a school there that is able to take children age 2.5 to 6 during weekdays for the cost of 600 per month. And beyond that, there are certified babysitters available flexibly for an hourly rate. The local community I've experienced, and I've fact checked this with several locals. So my statements here are true. So it is predominantly friendly. It's 60 to 80% English speaking. It is used to tourists, and it has a higher standard of living than mainland. So poverty here exists, but it's more rare. And when it comes to Prospera, the majority doesn't even know or care, right? For all they know, it's just another resort development. People have a much more grounded view. There's many who are involved in friendly. So people like the idea that, hey, I can get great jobs for higher wages. Many of them are employed in Prosper as construction workers or as security guards or as drivers. And they also love the idea of education for their children. The Montessori school is super popular on the island where many locals send their children to, right? And they love the idea that it's an attractive place that foreigners come to visit and that have something cool to teach their children, right? They're used to, hey, people leave this place, leave Honduras to go somewhere else to seek opportunity. And now people are coming here. And that's kind of cool when you experience that. Of course, there's media scare stories, right? So I wouldn't run a rabbit in everyone's face. We're not like the big deal in town or whatever. We're humble business partners. But for any attendees or residents, you'll be able to interact plenty with the local community, several of which will be residents in Vitalia as well, local islanders, as well as a very large number from like the Ethereum and the tech startup community from Honduras. So you'll have opportunities to reference check. Hey, what's cool here? What's the vibe here? What's welcome and what is not? So we'll have a very high exposure to that local community and have the opportunity to interact with it. So the one moral commandment of Italia is, or the goal is, we want to make death optional, right? So as I said in the beginning, the key goal is we accelerate the development of life extension technologies. What are the values that are guiding us and how to achieve that? So I would describe it as a crossover between Zuzalu and Y Combinator. So one of the key values is entrepreneurialism. We value the creation of sustainable ventures. Producers and leaders are valued highly, and the ones that are creating lasting structures with a long time horizon. Also, the idea of duocracy that I learned from, if you remember the podcast episode with Jason Steger, right? So in doubt, just do it, right? So we want to make decentralized community development work. So, and you can't make decentralized community decisions on small things. So don't ask permission when it comes to that. Group decision-making processes are for the big things. Informed consent and radical tolerance. So these are very core Zuzalu values: respect boundaries, doubt us, don't assume, value your independence, don't shill, right? So these are communities that are very experimental, very innovative. There's a degree of neurodiversity, and people do things that might seem weird, right? New things are just weird, right? So you need to tolerate radical self-expression and withhold premature judgment in this space. And all of this needs to be coupled or held together with responsibility. We're at the frontiers of humanity, right? So we're doing something that others haven't done before. So ambiguity can be expected. So we need to maintain strong ethics in the absence of articulated rules. So residents will be heavily selected around having ethics, right? So, and a good rule of thumb is the lost wallet test. Is the person someone who would, or are you someone who would give the wallet back with all the money inside, even if you could get away with just taking the money out and leaving the wallet? That's ethics. It's doing the right thing when nobody's looking. So this will be the profile of the resident. The ethics, we're inviting real builders, not talkers, right? So people who are helpful, who do things for others without being asked. It is not a resort. You can't expect people to cater to your needs. Also, positive vibes you like to be around. It's people that you want to be around and that are resourceful, that have talents. These will be scientists, entrepreneurs, artists, and thinkers that are coming from the longevity biotech communities, decentralized science, but also healthcare and medical professionals. We want and need people with experience with treating people and sort of delivering drugs and therapies into the human body. There will be a huge influence by crypto communities, so the Ethereum and DeFi communities, of course. But there's also plenty of Bitcoiners and Solana developers that are on the island, Robotons, that also want to attract their communities to come, and you're most welcome, even from any other crypto community, from Polkadot or Polygon, from any decentralized governance, charter cities, network states, as you and regular listeners of this podcast are probably caring about or knowing about. But also, if you can build things in the real world, if you can build hardware, if you can do construction or electrical engineering or something like that, you're more than welcome and really needed, right? So if you're handy, you're in the right place. Legal, right? So we're encouraging lawyers and legal engineers to come, right? So again, we do things differently, but with the right and better legal guardrails, not like without regulation, any nonsense like that. We want to do it better, right? We want to have passed the highest possible bars for ethics and not having standards. So lawyers are more than welcome to help us think how to achieve that. The same for philosophy and again ethics. So we'd be co-working. It's again combinable with full-time work. It's perfect if you want to set a new creative goal, write a book, make a piece of art, start a new venture. It's meant for you to play in the built environment. And you're going to co-live with other people, so you should treat them as neighbors, include new people in the community, educate them in the values, contribute to shared activities, be self-responsible within your household. So here is finally the sign up. So again, you as listeners on the podcast, you have preferred access to this. So mention this in the application if you came through this podcast. So the dates are January 6th to March 1. And so it's going to be 8 weeks. And the standard price for private room is $3,000 per month. And believe me, you're going to get a lot for it, right? This is high season at a really popular place, often with good amenities. But we're able to reduce that if you're willing to reduce level of comfort or share a room with someone. And we'll make it possible. If you come from a country where your level of income isn't that high, you're an early stage entrepreneur or a scientist, we'll make it work. So don't hesitate to apply and tell us about your situation. You'll have ample and plenty of opportunity to do so. There is, however, a couple of deadlines, so I'd encourage you to apply soon, right? So we consider it by date of application, not by date of approval, right? So best apply before October 31, which is within the next 2 weeks, to get it at the current rates. later during November and December will increase that rate. We don't want to make it harder for you or rush you into making that decision, right? But it's really for us, this is often expensive real estate that we're renting. So the earlier you can decide, the cheaper it is for us, right? So the later you come, the harder it is for us to increase capacity. So I highly encourage you to decide soon to apply. And my rule of thumb is if you're 70% sure you want to do it, then do it, right? If not, then wait a bit, okay? You hear from it in other places, maybe ask around who else is going. That's totally cool. But again, as listeners of this podcast, mention that you found out through this podcast about it, and I'll be on the other side of the applications. And I am highly encouraging you to be part of this really ambitious new venture that I'm starting together with people that I'm really excited to work with, like Lawrence from Vitalia and like many others that I met through the Zuzalu community that are becoming part really of this larger movement that I set out to create with Infinita Fund and with this podcast, and that are now becoming or are really good friends. And this is again part of really emotional my efforts to really build that community around me that is attracted to achieving the same goals that I want to achieve. So Zuzalu and Prospera have been really a revelatory experience for me in the past 1.5 years. And I hope with this podcast, with this episode, with taking you along on that learning journey, I can radiate a bit of that excitement and invite you to become part of that community. We're just getting started, right? And there's so much more we want to do. So bring yourself, bring your talents, bring your spouses, your families, your kids. There's a place for you, and we want you to join us on this endeavor. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you here soon.